I'm Dr. Carl Bell. I'm a psychiatrist, a professor at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I'm also the CEO and president of the Community Mental Health Council in Chicago, which is a large comprehensive mental health center on Chicago's South Side. In addition, I also do violence prevention, HIV prevention work in Durban, South Africa.
I've never said we'd go.
What about Sunday?
What about Sunday?
You said we'd go.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No,
Why'd you do that?
didn't.
You're doing it
Julio
again.
and Maria didn't know their little girl had seen them
I
arguing.
know you are.
In all relationships, sooner or later, there's going to be conflict. It's unavoidable, unavoidable. Unfortunately, this unavoidable aspect of life has to be solved and figured out because we want to try to manage these conflicts with people that we love and people that we care about. The first thing to remember that in most conflicts between two people who have a relationship, the source of the conflict and the source of the anger is hurt. Behind all anger is hurt. Basically, hurt people hurt people. The problem is that if you respond to that anger with anger of your own, that hurt does not go away. In fact, your anger generates more anger and more hurt. And so you wind up in this vicious circle that only escalates, and sooner or later somebody's going to get physically aggressive if you don't neutralize that anger. So you've got to be very, very clear. You want to try to do win-win with people in all of your important relationships, because the more successful you are in managing the conflict in your relationships, the less you respond to the anger and the more you respond to the hurt, the easier it'll be. You just can't get into a win-lose mentality. It's either win-win or no deal. A very, very old wise guy once told me, this man was wise because he'd been married 50 years. And he used to say to me as we would talk about marriage and being married and the difficulty of living with another person that you loved, he would always say to me, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Think about it. You can always do win-lose. You can always generate more problems and be the tough guy and be the guy that generates, and the winning strategy and beat people up and be rough and tough. You can always do that. The problem is that, again, if you respond to the underlying hurt, which is generating the anger, with more anger, all you're going to do is generate more hurt feelings and more distrust. And those are things you don't want in a relationship, The other thing to try to remember, if you can, and this is a maxim that I try to keep in my head at all times. The elephant does not swat the mosquito. So if you're a man in a relationship with a woman, the reality is you can always beat her up. You can always leave. You can always get a divorce. You can always be the tough guy, like I say. But what does that get you? Nothing. It just gets you more difficulty, more problems. You can be the older brother working with younger children. You can be the teacher working with students, whatever it is. You're always the powerful person in at least half of that relationship. And if you are powerful, why don't you really be powerful and try to work out a win-win relationship instead of a win-lose relationship? Because that's the key to all good relationships. Now, let's connect all of this to the animation, clingy thing.
All they knew
Could you just stop?
was that she had turned into a clingy thing.
Is that you, Lolita?
The problem is that children are like little teeny thermometers. They're in a family, husband and wife, and frequently unavoidable. What do we men say? Women probably say the same thing. You can't live with them and you can't live without them. So the only thing you can do in that situation is win-win. Now, there's going to be conflicts. There's going to be disagreements. People are going to have different ways of getting things done. And that doesn't mean this way is wrong or that way is right. It just means people do things differently. Both people can have different ways of getting to the same place successfully. But you got to work it out. You got to do win-win. The problem is when children are around and they see this conflict, they see the tension, even if it's quiet fighting, even if it's quiet tension, even if you get mad and you don't speak for a day or an hour or a week, or you walk around scowling all the time. Kids pick that up. And when kids feel that tension and that fear, they seek security. What's secure? Where is it safe? Who can I be with so I can be safe? And so one of the psychological symptoms for stress is to cling. They cling.
Lolita, what's making you so clingy?
She was too scared to talk. Too scared to be out of sight of Maria and Julio.
I remember I was on an L in Chicago, and there was a woman who was intoxicated, and she had with her a 4-year-old child, and she didn't know what stop to get off. And she was drunk out of her mind. And she kept getting off the L and getting back on the L. And this scared the hell out of this kid, scared him to death, because he was afraid his mother was going to get off at a stop and leave him on the train, and he'd be lost. So he was terrified. He then began, as I mentioned, to cling to his mother. Don't leave, holding on, just on him on the mother like glue, this little boy. She, of course, was feeling bothered by this because he was literally all over her. And she kept pushing him away. The more she pushed him away, the scareder he got that he was going to get left, and the more he clung to her and tried to hold on to her. And you got into this vicious circle, which messed the kid up.
It was a problem. At daycare.
Come join the boys and girls, Lolita.
At the playground.
Wanna swing?
Let me give you another clinical example from my actual work with patients. I had a mother bring her son in, and the complaint about the 9-year-old was that he was clinging to her, didn't want her out of his sight, wouldn't want her to go to work, et cetera, just constantly attached to her. I got this history. His grades were going into the toilet. He was just having trouble. So I sent her out, and I asked the kid, so what's up? What are you so scared about? And he proceeded to tell me that his uncle, the mother's brother, had recently been shot and killed. And the reason that he was clinging to his mother was because he was scared that she might also be killed. After all, he's 9 years old, his uncle got killed, what's to keep his mother from getting killed? And so he was clinging to her. Mother came back in, I said, well, it's interesting, you didn't tell me that your brother was killed about a month ago. And of course, she started crying because she was still hurt over that. And I had to explain to her that the reason that her son was clinging to her was that he was afraid she could also get killed. And I explained to her, this is a symptom of trauma and stress. This clingy behavior is a symptom of trauma and stress. So imagine, if you will, the mother tells this 9-year-old, I'm gonna pick you up at 6 o'clock. The mother doesn't pick the kid up at 6 o'clock. She picks him up at 10 o'clock. What's that kid gonna be doing from 6 to 10? He's gonna be spending 4 hours worrying that his mother has been killed. And he's gonna be messed up, he's not gonna get his homework done, he's gonna do horrible in school, he's gonna be irritable, cranky, and just messed up. So when you see clingy behavior from children, 5 to 9, even younger, you gotta think they're scared, they're seeking security. I don't want to push them away, because the more I push them away, the scarier they're going to get. The psychological first aid for that symptom of stress or trauma is consistent parenting, communication, clear expectations, children being made very, very clear what's expected.
They came home when they said they would, did what they said they would do, so she could depend on them.
Here's why this animation is so important. Clingy Thing illustrates a basic principle of human behavior. It illustrates the reality that when people feel anxious, when they feel scared, when they feel nervous, what they tend to do is seek a source of support, security, and shelter. And so, although this video focuses on a small girl, the reality, if you think about it, and if you're honest, we all function like this little clingy thing. Whenever we start feeling scared, whenever we start feeling uncomfortable, whenever we start feeling anxious, we seek sources of support. So this illustrates for us a very clear dynamic of human behavior. It also illustrates principles of how to respond to these feelings of insecurity. Everybody's going to get insecure. Everybody's going to feel vulnerable. Everybody at some point is going to feel needy. What's the strategy for that? Do you tell people, grow up, be a man, be a woman? Do you tell little kids, stiff upper lip? What are you nervous about? Shut up. Do you do that? Or do you do what's win-win? Do you say, look, I understand you're scared. I understand you need support. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to provide you with some consistent caretaking that you can rely on, you can trust. Trust is the assured reliance of another person's integrity. So the more consistent you are, the more predictable you are, the more you're able to keep your promises, the more people will trust you because they will see evidence of your integrity and they will feel safe and secure in your presence.
But little by little, things began looking better. Until one day,
Wow, Lolita!
There's my little girl.